Okay. Not right away because we're going to have that much time. I wouldn't mind if other classes stay open. Cancel everything else, but what can you do? It's Elamatikun, so it has to be a Seder, we can't have chaos. So let me just conclude what we started with yesterday. More or less explained about we went into the question, why is Purim associated with concealment? Concealment was the bad news. After that came Hashem revealed himself. Why did we say, oh, Hashem's name is hidden because he was concealed? But then he was revealed with a miracle. Esther represents concealment because things were concealed. But then there was a miracle. And a number of other things which also points to concealment being a major part of Purim. And the answer was that the concealment in this context is not just the concealment of what happened before the miracle, but it's also about the concealment. The miracle itself was a concealed miracle. And a miracle, which is a concealed miracle, is much higher than a revealed miracle. You remember that from yesterday, only 24 hours ago?
Yeah. Yes.
And the difference between a revealed miracle, concealed miracle, and nature, which is also from Hashem. So we explained yesterday, that of course, nature is from Hashem.
Rather than the revealed miracle is sitting right in front of you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rabbi Pave. Rabbi Pave's commentaries are always very, very on target.
Exactly.
So, what does it mean? A concealed miracle on the surface, it seems almost like a contradiction. And the answer is, we explained yesterday that the real definition of a miracle is not just that we can openly see it's from Hashem, but a miracle means it's coming from Ein Sof. Miracle means something happens where we see that the laws of nature don't apply. And that can only be when Hashem's light, which is infinite, shines. And when Hashem's light that's infinite shines, there can be two possibilities. One possibility that it shines, and as a result of that, things in nature get out of order, which is understood. If a light, which is infinite, just like the Gashmis, imagine you have a box that is a limited size, and you put something in the box that's bigger than the box, then the box starts breaking. Things can hold. So imagine if you put something infinite in a place that's finite, things go out of order. And that's why things happen that are not natural. So the fire isn't burning, and the water is standing, and the sun is stopping, and all the miracles that we see in the Torah. How is it possible for there to be a miracle and nothing, absolutely nothing changes in the natural order? Because it's a miracle that's coming from a deeper place in the infinite realm, that it's so infinite, it's not even limited by being infinite. And therefore it could be contained in a finite place and nothing changes. And yet at the same time, the infinite light is there as if it is in a situation where there is a miracle. So in other words, what we said yesterday was that and when you talk about infinite, it has one limitation. The limitation is that it's finite. With Hashem, we can't say that. If Hashem would have any limitation, that's not Hashem. Hashem has to be, in order to understand, I mean, I go into the whole philosophical part of behind it, but Hashem, who was always there and always existed, and he's the source of everything that exists, has to be absolute infinity, which means there are no laws, no rules, no limitations, no restrictions whatsoever. And infinite means absolute infinite, not even limited by being infinite. I just want to associate with something else that we think I spoke about at the beginning of the year, is that there's Kapitel Tehillim, which we say every Wednesday, where David HaMelech is sort of speaking to the nations of the world and said, how foolish are you? You think that Hashem doesn't see what we're doing. Hashem doesn't hear what we're saying. Hashem it doesn't watch all this, and therefore you go ahead and you kill people and you do what you do. And then David HaMelech says, how foolish are you? If he's the one that created vision, of course he sees. He created hearing, of course he hears. So on a simple level, who's David HaMelech talking to? Fools? David HaMelech would not take his time to write a chapter Tehillim and put that into the Torah, because and this is a conversation with people who are stupid. So obviously he's talking about people that are philosophers, thinkers, deep thinkers, and they have a philosophy, and David HaMelech is telling them that your philosophy has flaws to it. What's their philosophy? This was their philosophy. Hashem is infinite. In fact, they said he's so infinite that therefore it doesn't make sense that he's focusing and thinking about people on earth, whether they're washing the right hand or the left hand. Hashem was infinite, is concerned whether I'm tying my left shoe before my right shoe. Hashem was infinite is thinking about, we don't even exist in his realm. He's infinite and we're finite. So that's what their argument was. Like there's a pasuk in Tehillim, we say this in davening, Rom al kol goyim Hashem. The goyim say Hashem is exalted, he's so high. And therefore what? And therefore, he's not associated with what we do here. In fact, they claim that, remember we had it in the Mamar, it's a disgrace. If you would tell me that Hashem is concerned about what we are doing, you're actually degrading him, not exalting him. Because that's a degradation that Hashem should be busy with that. Like telling someone that there's a man who is an intelligent, brilliant person, and what does he do? He spends a few hours a day playing with dolls. It's an embarrassment. If he does, he'll make sure nobody knows about it. Mm-hmm. So what does Chassidus say? What does Torah say? What does David HaMelech saying? No, Hashem is infinite, and there's no difference between heaven and earth. There's no difference between the highest, the seventh heaven, and the lowest place on earth. But Hashem is such absolute infinity, heaven, earth, everything is all the same. Finite, infinite makes no difference. And therefore, just like you admit that Hashem deals with the infinite, he deals with the finite in the same way. So this is the same point, that Hashem's infinity is absolute, not even limited to finite. Got it? Yes? No? Okay. So now this explains another thing on the sheet. You might have heard in one of the classes that when Mashiach comes, it says all the Yom Tovim will no longer be there. This is number, my numbers didn't come up yet. Let me look over here. It's number 8. Kol HaMoedim B'Telim, all the Yom Tovim will become bottled. Loss of Lavai, except for which Yom Tov? For a little bit strange. First of all, the idea that Yom Tov will no longer be there is strange, because one of the basic principles is that Torah is eternal. Second of all, how could it be that Pesach, which is in the Torah itself, Shavuos and Sukkot, which is in the Torah itself, that'll no longer be. And Purim, which is the Yom Tov that was established by the sages and the prophets, that will be. How can it be greater? So again, this is something which needs another hour, but being that you're all, Baruch Hashem, so knowledgeable in Chassidus, you'll understand it in just 2 minutes. I'll explain it briefly. So look at number 9. Anyone recall or remember what these words mean? Shraga, B'tiara, Maya Hanile. It sounds familiar from anywhere. Shraga is Aramaic, B'tiara, Maya Hanile. So let me remind you that it means we're coming to Pesach now, and one of the laws of Pesach is that you check for chametz at night with a candle. And the Gemara asks, why check at night with a candle? Why not check by day with a candle? And the Gemara's answer is candle during daylight is irrelevant. It doesn't accomplish anything. That's the meaning. Shraga in Aramaic means a candle. The Tihara means during the day. Mayahadale, what does it accomplish? Which means when the sun is shining bright, you won't even see the light of the candle.
That's in Aramaic. That's the translation.
Yeah, Shraga is candle. B'tiara means during the day. My ahanile. My is like ma. What does it accomplish? In fact, if you light a candle during the day, let's say outside, for example, you wouldn't even know whether the fire is burning or not. You have to put your finger there to find out if the fire is burning. Maybe you might remember from your good old days when 100 years ago, when you were little children, you had a flashlight and the battery went dead because you didn't know that the flashlight was on. How could you not know that it's on? Because during the day, you don't see any light. At night, you wouldn't be a question. Of course, you'd see that it's on. But by day, you don't see that it's on. So this way Chassidus explained it briefly. When Mashiach comes, Hashem's infinite light will be revealed. And when Hashem's infinite light will be revealed, as you know, everything in the world will see it from a different perspective. In other words, there'll be so much more light and depth on Pesach when Mashiach comes. There will be Pesach. But the godly light that's going to shine Pesach will be so bright, so brilliant, so much greater than what's shining now, that the light that shines now on Pesach will be sort of become insignificant in the presence of that light.
In the presence of the light of Mashiach.
That's going to shine when Mashiach comes. In other words, we're not talking about something else. We're talking about Pesach. Pesach itself, there's a godly light that shines. But the godly light that's going to shine in Pesach, it'll be the Pesach light. But it'll be from such a deeper place, which is sort of infinite compared to finite, that the light of Pesach that shines now will be totally bottled. Or if you want, we can say this in different words. There's something that's said in the Medrash. If it wouldn't be in the Medrash, we wouldn't even be allowed to use such an expression. Shlomo HaMelech's book of Koheles starts off with the word Hevel Havolim, that everything is vanity. He uses the word vanity 7 times. So the Medrash says it's also alluding to that the Torah that we're studying now and the understanding of Torah we have now is Hevel, is vanity compared to the understanding of Torah we'll have when Mashiach comes. The only way I can possibly explain it to myself is when you talk to a child and you ask them how they understand certain things. And of course, when parents hear that, they laugh. It's very cute. They can talk about something which has tremendous depth to it, and they speak about it in just simple words. But it's funny to hear how they understand it when like the real meaning and depth to it is totally lost. And sometimes we see this with ourselves, even now when we learn Chassidus, like the Sikha that we went through, how this one, I don't know who was in the class, not everybody was there, that Rabbi shechted Reb Zera. On the surface, it's Rabbi took a knife and shechted him, and there's all sorts of questions, how do you do it? Then we go to a different meaning. Rabbi and Reb Zera meditated on them, went on a spiritual journey. So it's a whole different understanding, that the simple understanding sort of gets lost in the presence of that bigger understanding. And that's what it says about Torah, and the same is with Yom Tov. So therefore, the fact that all the Yom Tovim will become insignificant in Batel doesn't mean Batel non-existent. It means the way we celebrate Pesach now and what we experience on Pesach now will become Batel compared to the way we'll experience it then, like a candlelight in the presence of sunlight. So what about Purim? The answer is, Purim is already now, that light that's going to be when Mashiach comes is already shining now. Okay, I'm going to move quick. Another thing, yes.
Is there going to be, like, if the light that's shining now is the one that we're going to have when Mashiach comes, is it going to be like a lesser light than all the other holidays when Mashiach comes?
Why lesser?
Because nothing's being...
Because there's nothing new.
Yeah.
The newness is that it'll be revealed. The newness that we'll be able to openly experience it. Like now we don't experience it openly. Maybe tzaddikim feel that now already. But we, the masses, we know what it says, but we don't. On the contrary, Purim we do work. Purim we do all the things we do during a weekday, not like Shabbos and Yom Tov.
Right.
So we don't perceive it now. Then we'll perceive it.
Okay.
Don't feel so bad for Hanukkah. Because I think there's a source that says Hanukkah also. Okay, so that's it. Another thing we'll do very quickly is number 11. Look at number 11. You see what it says? Yom Kippurim. Where are those words from? It's from the Chumash. When we talk about that day, we call it Yom Kippur. It's true, it's Yom Kippur. But it's also called Yom Kippurim in the Chumash. Where is it? Let me see if I can find the page quickly. Yom Kippurim, page is 31. On the 10th day of the month, the day of atonement, in Hebrew, Yom HaKippurim. And the next pasuk, Yom Kippurim. You hear the emphasis? Yom Kippurim. That Yom Kippur is like Purim. If there are 2 days in the year that I would think are the furthest apart from each other, I would think it's Yom Kippur and Purim. Yom Kippur is fasting, you're in shul all day, and you're in a spiritual bubble all day. And Purim, you're dancing and singing and eating and drinking, and it's a mitzvah to eat and drink, just the opposite. And yet it's called Yom Kippurim. So just on the simple level, where do we see any kind of association with the 2 days is Goro, drawing of lots. On Yom Kippur, one of the highlights of the day was they took 2 goats and they were supposed to draw lots, and that would determine which goat would be used as a korban and which goat would, God forbid, a korban to forgive the sins of the Yidden in one way, and another goat would be sent off by Azazel, be killed, and that would be an atonement in another way. But this was a major part of the Avodah on Yom Kippur. The drawing of lots is a major part of Purim also. How do we know? On the surface, I wouldn't think so. Because where do we have drawing of lots? Haman, he drew lots to decide which day to do the thing to the Jews. By the way, there's not enough time, but it's a beautiful medrash. I prepared it, but I won't have time to say it. Where he says he didn't just drew lots on that. He went through every day of the week. First, he decided which day. Sunday. Sunday's no good because of this. Then he drew lots again. Monday. That's not good because of this. Tuesday. That didn't work, so he started to work on the months. Nisan, no good. There are miracles happening on that month. Iyar, no good because this happened. Sivan, no good. And it came to Adar. Others, he said, Adar is the mazel, the constellation of Adar is fish. And fish swallow up whatever they want to swallow up. So this is the month will swallow up the Jews. So Hashem said, you're right, but sometimes fish swallow, and sometimes they get swallowed. You're going to get swallowed up. And that was the Yontif. So that's why the Yontif is called Purim. Purim means lots. Why is it? That's, by the way, why it's Purim plural, because he drew a lot of lots. But I don't understand. Haman is the one who drew the lots. Why is the Yontif called Purim? Big question. We won't be able to do the answer. But this is what we see on the surface an association. And we know that in Chassidus it says that the name of something describes the essence. That means the essence of the Yontif is all about drawing of lots. And there's beautiful explanations in Chassidus what that is. How Haman thought that through, again, the clip of Haman thought that by drawing lots, that's how he's going to be able to defeat the Yidden. And it turns out that, on the contrary, by drawing lots, that's why he was defeated. All has to do with the drawing lots. And the beautiful Mamar from every Rebbe, starting from the Alter Rebbe, and that leads up to this. And however, just one point which we could understand very quickly and easily is, what's unique about Yom Kippur is that on Yom Kippur, that's the day that the Yechida comes out and open by every Yid. We know that every Yid has Yechida, which is the deepest part of the Neshama. That's something which normally doesn't surface. Because even a Jew who is the furthest from Yiddishkeit you could imagine, he might be the worst enemy of Yidden and of Hashem and everything else, he has a Yechida. His Yechida is on fire, but it's totally hidden. When does it come out in the open? When, God forbid, a person is being challenged to either give up their Yiddishkeit or give up their life, it comes out. But other than that, there's one day a year that the Yechida surfaces naturally. When is that day? Yom Kippur. And that's why it's a day of Tshuva. You might have read somewhere that it's also Rosh Hashanah. You might have read also that it's during the 10 days of Tshuva. It's all the same. It means it starts surfacing on Rosh Hashanah and it peaks on Yom Kippur. Purim is also the same thing. The Yechida comes out on Purim. Don't lose the opportunity of these 24 hours. I'm telling you, this is one of the most precious days of the year. The only difference is Yom Kippur, how do we absorb the revelation of this deepest part of the neshama? By fasting, by removing ourselves from worldly things and immersing ourselves in a spiritual world. On Purim, we have a greater power, and that is that the Yechida, which is the infinite part of the neshama, expresses itself in dancing and singing and eating and drinking and dafka in the Gashmizik world and living and doing Gashmizik things. We can bring in the spirit of the Yechida, which is the deepest part of the neshama. So basically, on Yom Kippur, it's expressed mainly through tshuva. On Purim, it's expressed mainly through simcha.
And is that related to the lots? Or that's just another symbol?
It's another subject. I mean, of course, it's related. It has to be related to the last. Yes,
Right.
of course.
Rabbi Majeski, can I ask? So, just to clarify about the stuff before
Yeah,
or the other people. So, like, those Yavim Tovim will be elevated in the times of Mashiach, but Purim is already elevated. Just
that's
those
what I meant. Right, right.
So Purim express Simcha and
Purim is simcha,
what's the second one?
and Yom Kippur it's tshuva.
Hmm.
Both are the Yechida coming out, but Purim it comes out. Tshuva is on Yom Kippur, and Purim is unlimited simcha. That's why it says number 15. Chayiv Adam Sumi v'Puri. A person should be drinking on Purim. Ad L'Yada ben Arham L'Barach Mordechai. So let me touch on that a little bit. What does it mean you don't know the difference between blessing Mordechai and cursing Haman? So Hashem wants me to get so drunk that I'm going to say Haman should be blessed and Mordechai, God forbid, the opposite? Doesn't make any sense. Can be. Purim, the Torah and Hashem still exist on Purim. So the answer is, it means that on Purim, our simcha and our connection to Hashem should be on such a level that it transcends logic. That my blessing Mordechai, which means my pursuing Kedusha, and my cursing Haman, which means my rejecting Klippa, should be so strong that it's coming from a place which is lo yoda, beyond and above and transcends logic. Because that's the only way you get rid of a mother. So it's all connected to the fact that when Yechida comes out, unlimited things are happening. So it has to be unlimited simcha. In fact, this is even more than Yantiv. You know, Yantiv, the Bezdin used to send out shluchim to all communities to make sure that when people are gathered together on Yantiv, drinking wine, it should be limited because otherwise it could lead to inappropriate things. Purim, the mitzvah is to drink in an unlimited way. So it's interesting. The simcha on Yantiv is a pasuk in Chumash, and Pesach, yet the simcha on Purim is even greater than that simcha, unlimited simcha. I must tell you that, and there's two things that I want to mention. By the Rebbe, Purim was an incredible Yantiv. A lot of unusual things would happen on Purim because that's a day that the Rebbe would also be in an unlimited kind of simcha. But I want to point out to two, there's a lot of them, but I want to point out to 2 years of Purim where some very unusual things happened. One was 1953. 1953, that was just 2 short years after the Rebbe became Rebbe. And during the Purim Farbrengen, if you know the order of Farbrengen, the Rebbe would say a mimer by every Farbrengen. A mimer is about a half hour. The rest of the Farbrengen were sichos. You know the difference between the two? So a mimer is usually pure Chassidus. Sichos, it literally means like conversations. Sichos could be about worldly matters, it could be about Rashi, Rambam, Gemara, but a mimer is usually pure Chassidus. And that is something different. When the Rebbe said a mimer, everybody stood up. The Rebbe said a mimer, his eyes were closed. He had a handkerchief wrapped around his fingers. He said it with a special tune. There was a special niggin that they sang before the mimer. A mimer was a much more spiritual experience than anything else. To the mimer, about 3 o'clock in the morning, they say the Rebbe's face became very serious, and he started telling the story. And he said that in Russia, during the revolution, so I guess after the revolution, after when communists went into power, they told people to go vote. So it was a chassid that he heard that the Rebbe Rashab said everybody should go vote. He had no idea of politics, no idea what's going on. To him, if the Rebbe said to go vote, it's just the same like the Rebbe would say, go say chapter Tehillim. So he went to the mikveh before, put on his gartels. He's going to do what the Rebbe said to do. When he comes there, he had no idea what to do. So people showed him what you do, how you're supposed to vote. After the voting, everybody shouted, hooray. In Russia, they say, hurrah. So the Rebbe took his hands, put them together like this, and he said 3 times loud, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. In Hebrew, what does that mean? He is evil. Hu means he, Ra means evil. And then the Rebbe said he's saying another mimer. And that mimer was about Haman being hung. I'm just going to pass this around because someone captured the picture as the Rebbe was speaking. You can see it here. The Rebbe holding his hands together. Anyway, 2 days later, at that time, there was a big danger looming in Russia. Stalin came up with a new crazy thing. It was called the doctor's plot. If you go online, you can read all about it. And that is they accused that Jewish doctors are poisoning people who are political people because they have an agenda, and therefore they started arresting Jewish doctors and sending them to some sort of a concentration camp. Basically, his ultimate plan was to do the same thing Hitler did. They started to arrest doctors one after the other, and this was in 1953. And 2 days later, after this, the news came out that on that day, something happened with Stalin. He collapsed. But of course, at first they said he collapsed. Then a little bit later, they said he's dead. And the time that it happened was the time when the Rebbe said that mimer. If that's not enough, I mean, so Chassidim said, the Rebbe said the mimer, and that put him away because it was very unusual. And the Rebbe said, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. The interesting thing is in 1991 was the first time that the Rebbe edited the mimer and published it. He said it in 1953, but in 1991, it was the first time he edited and published it. When they publish a mimer, there's always a little forward, like explaining something. So the publishers wrote down, this mimer was said in association with the downfall of Stalin. The Rebbe okayed it to put it in. So that's when the Rebbe endorsed that. That's exactly what happened. In 1991, on Purim, another miracle happened. And that miracle was that the Persian Gulf War ended on Purim, 1991, when that mimer was printed a second time. I think we should print it today, now a third time. But anyway, this is one of the most outstanding Purims. Another outstanding Purim was, this one I didn't witness because it was 1953. So I was not youth. 1966 was 100 years from the passing of the Tzemach Tzedek. And that whole year, the Rebbe spoke about it. It's 100 years from the passing of Tzemach Tzedek. Now, in reference to Purim, there's a halacha. And that's also here on the sheet. And the halacha is number something. Where is it? Number 17. Call up Pesha Yad Neislan. Whoever stretches out a hand, you give. In other words, Purim, there's no limitations. Whoever asks for tzedakah, you give. So that's for bringing. I don't know if you're familiar with this. the whole subject about drinking. In 1964, the Rebbe came out with a Chassidim called it with a decree. No longer drinking vodka. For anybody under 40, should not drink more than 3 little l'chaims. And the Rebbe said only negative things come out of it, and that's it. You shouldn't do it anymore. Spoke about it very sharply, numerous times. At that Farbrengen, Purim 1966, the Rebbe said, I'm lifting the decree, and everybody should drink without any limitations.
Just for that year or for all
No,
years?
just that day, right.
Uh-huh.
You can't imagine what the place looked like. But I remember the Rebbe called over someone in the crowd. His father was a very famous rabbi, grandfather in Israel, Rabbi Zevin, and the Rebbe gave him a cup like this, and it inside was mashka, not regular mashka, 190 proof. Anyway, then the Rebbe suddenly said, "Kol ha'pershet yad meish, whoever will stretch out a hand, I will give him," which means the Rebbe is going to give mashka. By the way, when the Rebbe gives mashka, he's not giving us a drink. Just like when the Rebbe gives $1, or the Rebbe gives a sefer, he's not just giving us a book to read. He's not just giving us $1 to give tzedakah. We keep the dollar because the dollar is just an object through which the Rebbe is giving us brachas. So there's in fact a story with the Rebbe Rashab that he was once at a Farbrengen and he said to the chassid, he poured water in a cup and said, "Here, I want to give you l'chaim." The chassid was sitting far away, so he says to the Rebbe, "Rebbe, I have already." So the Rebbe says, "What is it that you have, and what is it that I want to give you? You know, if I want to give you whiskey, so you have whiskey. But if the Rebbe is giving you something else, you don't have what I want to give you." But obviously that chassid didn't get it. So when the Rebbe gave, that means the Rebbe is giving brachas, the Rebbe is giving something spiritual. And everybody pushed forward to get. And it was so much pushing to this point where the Rebbe just had to leave. So the Rebbe left, walked out of 770, and on the steps, somebody walked over to the Rebbe and said, "Rebbe, I didn't get yet." The Rebbe poured him l'chaim. And as he was walking to the car, he kept pouring l'chaim to more and more people. When he came to the car, there were people on top of the car, stretching out their hands, "Rebbe, I didn't get l'chaim." To the point that the Rebbe could not get in the car. The roof of the car caved in. The Rebbe had to go home with a different car. When the Rebbe came to his house, there were already people who ran there to get l'chaim. And this was a very unusual Purim. It was understood that it means something was going on a higher plane. And some barriers were broken or barriers had to be broken, that the Rebbe took down the barriers down here. The interesting thing was, when the Rebbe came back the next morning, there's still people that were awake from before, and somebody ran over to the Rebbe and was crying, "Rebbe, I didn't get." The Rebbe gave him. And then Mincha, somebody walked over, "The Rebbe, I didn't get it." The Rebbe said, "Purim is over. That's it." You know, this was yesterday. Today's a new day, and now it doesn't apply anymore. Anyway, so Purim is a time of unlimited simcha, unlimited light, unlimited. Stock has to be unlimited. Everything is. It's a time where, and of course, it's very hard to be that way because we all have all the things in our minds that weigh us down, and our concerns and our anxieties. So in these 24 hours, we have to let go. Just forget about anything that comes to mind that is the opposite of simcha. And just immerse ourselves in this day. And again, the spirit of Purim is simcha. We have mitzvahs to do. We have to say Al Hanisim, we have to eat a Suda, we have to send Shalach Manas, we have to give tzedakah. But the spirit of the Yontiv, more than anything else, is the simcha on that day. Let me see if I can cover one more thing. Okay, so let's just talk about this is too long. This is too long. So we just touched on number 31. We try to explain very well, not enough time to that. Number 31, if you know the story of Purim, one of the things that happened was Mordechai gathered 22,000 children and he studied Torah with them. And the Medrash says Hashem said when he heard the voices of these young children studying Torah, that's what aroused his compassion, and that was the beginning of when everything started to turn around, the decree. So why specifically children? What's the relation between children? And first of all, on a simple level, it says that in every generation, all the wicked people that wanted to uproot Judaism, they aimed towards the children. Because the children, that's really the foundation, that's the future of Judaism. Paro said to throw the babies into the Nile, because if you get rid of the foundation, you get rid of the building. In modern times, everyone knows that in Russia, the worst crime was if old men were sitting in a shul studying Torah, nobody bothered them. But to teach children, that was like the worst crime you could do. They were sent over to Siberia or, God forbid, shot right on the spot. Teaching children was the worst thing. They knew that if you teach Torah to the young, then Judaism has a future. And if not, so of course, one of the things that Haman did was that children shouldn't be studying Torah. And Mordechai, in spite of that, did the exact opposite. He gathered them together and he studied Torah with them. But on a deeper level, as we're speaking now, that Purim is all about the revelation of Yechidah, one of the things about children is that the Yechidah in a child, basically when we're younger, from birth until bar mitzvah and bas mitzvah, the Yechidah in a child is more revealed than it is in an adult. And the reason is because intellect, as great as it is and as useful as it is, and as like the greatest tool we have to understand the deepest things in the world, but intellect interferes with, intellect is finite, intellect is limited. And that interferes with the revelation of Yechidah. So when we're young, and people think children believe in Hashem, they believe in Mashiach, we want Mashiach now, it's because they don't understand, so they just say whatever they say. They're gullible. But the truth is, it's much deeper than that. The real truth is that children have Yechidah just like we do, and by them it's more open. And because they don't have the Chokhmah, there's nothing there that interferes and blocks the light of Yechidah from shining. When they become bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, the chokhmah, the wisdom and the intellect in the person starts sort of blocking and I would say, like making it, it's like tinted glass. It doesn't allow the Yechidah to be shining so openly. So being that this was the time where they needed the Yechidah to be revealed, they didn't have to have Mesiras Nefesh. They were ready to give up their lives for Yiddishkeit. Because actually Haman made a decree only for the Jews. And if a Jew in those days would have decided to go across to become a Persian or some other country, he would have survived. So they all had Mesiras Nefesh. The thought didn't even dawn on them to Chas v'Shalom do that. They were ready to fight for their existence and not to give up their identity as a Jew. So through the children, that revealed the Yechidah. And this also explains a little bit what we see with the Rebbe. No Rebbe in Chabad ever, and no Rebbe anywhere ever spent so much time with children like the Rebbe did. Rallies for children, like Ba'oma parades. If you watch it, hours. The Rebbe could be spending hours talking to children, waving to children. And we understand that, first of all, children are, like I said before, the foundation of the future. And second of all, that's where the Yechidah is revealed. And by revealing the Yechidah in the children, it becomes revealed by the adults. Okay. Good morning, Rabbi. Hello. So I'm wishing everybody a Freilich Purim. So again, remember, Purim, don't let anything else in. Lock the doors, the windows, even the chimney, make sure there's no way they can get in. And it's the time to get rid of a Malik, and that starts this Shabbos. This Shabbos is the Shabbos Zachar, where we start read the parsha, and that gives us the strength. Everything comes from Torah. The strength to get rid of Amalek on a personal level, which is doubt, yeshus, coldness. Okay. All of that. And done. Right?